Hello, welcome back. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and especially thank you for your dedication and commitment to your spiritual practice. So, if you're just tuning in, I say that a lot because that really is the highest and best offering that you could give anyone, anywhere, is your dedication and commitment to your practice, to truth, to extending love to the Son of God, to teaching only love, for that is what you are. Things like that. Yes, so thank you. And thank you also for tuning in here. What we're going to talk about today is a really good question that comes up for people on the path. And that's why do we continue to identify as an ego? We know deep down we're not. Well, and if you don't know that, you're not an ego. I'll explain a little bit more about what that is in a moment. But we know we're not, or we quickly learn that we're not. And perhaps you'll learn that in the next couple of minutes. So, why do we keep identifying with it and experiencing the same stuff, the crap, over and over and over again? Why do we continue to obstruct ourselves and block our own happiness? Why do we continue to deny who we really are? Well, let's talk about that. So, what actually is the ego? Well, it is a false sense of personal self. It's a sense of individuality. It's the thought of separation. It's the sense that, okay, I appear to be here separate from 8 billion other things that look more or less like this. And we're all separate from every other life form with which we share this spinning ball of rock, or so it appears. There's difference and multiplicity everywhere we look. And me, myself, and I, yes, me. I am the center of all of it. And me, it's all about me. That's the ego. This false sense of self believes it's in competition with everyone else because it sees them as outside of itself and is therefore deeply suspicious at best and downright murderous at worst. And it never gets above that deep suspicion. It thinks that everything is out to get it and kill it. So it engages in preemptive strikes where attack is fully justified. If that sounds brutal, savage, and wrong, it is brutal, it is savage, and as it turns out, it's also wrong. A simple mistake. The ego is not you. It's not you. Who are you? Well, you're the Son of God. What does that mean? We're all the Son of God. The historical Jesus is not the only Son of God. We're all the Son of God. Singular. You may or may not have been taught that growing up or even last week in adulthood. I don't know. This is a new one for a lot of people to see themselves as the Son of God. Of course, we're all the Son of God. That's who we are. Like extends like. God, the Creator, extends Himself. We're not, therefore, a physical body. We're not limited in any way. And we're whole, which means one, whole and complete. There is no individuality. There is no separation of any kind. When people drive past on the freeway with bumper stickers saying one love, that is not a ganja induced hippie pipe dream only. That is fact. The bumper sticker may have been induced with some green leafy herbal substance, but the truth of one love is true. It's fact. There is only perfect oneness. The ego is impossible because there is not now, and there never has been, any separation at all. Any separation of any kind. There has never been, there is not now. The ego is therefore impossible. It's nothing. Forgive it. Let it go. Which brings us back to the original question. Why do we find that so hard? Well, when we identify as an ego, when we think we're a separate individual self, I like to call it a self-sustaining survival unit, which is a phrase that I've been using in talks and teachings and workshops and things like that since the 1990s. I did not make this up. I read it in the 1990s on a woman's resume. And I thought, well, that's really, really interesting. And at the time, I thought, well, that's pretty unusual and cool. Self-sustaining survival unit. Yeah, well, and as I've come to um, grow into an adult, or more of an adult, and study and practice A Course in Miracles, I've thought, well, what a great way. There's no better way to describe the ego's way of thinking than to convince you that you're a self-sustaining survival unit, competing with other self-sustaining survival units for what we here on Spinning Ball of Rock, which is Earth, deem to be limited resources. So we must justify our own hatred of our brother who's going to get our stuff. He's going to take our stuff. He's going to get it before we do, so we better kill him right away. And that's what the ego thinks. This is how wars begin and are carried out. It is. And this is savage. It's brutal, it's savage, and as it turns out, it's wrong. It's a mistake. The great thing about mistakes, they can be corrected. Corrected. The ego wants you to believe and continue to believe that you're guilty, that you've separated from God. And in the process, you've harmed your brother. You've murdered your brother. The ego wants you to believe that you're guilty. Yet, if we're only perfect oneness with God, that means there's no separation of any kind, which means if you follow it out, and I encourage you to do this, the separation never happened. It's impossible. It never occurred. This is the essence of accepting what we here in A Course in Miracles call the atonement for ourselves. It is the acknowledgement. Essential to this is the acknowledgement that the separation never occurred. It's impossible. Therefore, the ego is impossible. Therefore, our mad senses of individuality, where we define and defend personal territory left and right, competing with each other, thinking nasty thoughts, even if we never say anything nasty to our brother or lash out and harm him physically, we're still thinking these thoughts, aren't we? Yes, of course we are. We do it all the time. So this is a simple mistake. It's not possible. So why do we keep doing it? Well, we feel guilty, and the ego wants to keep us feeling guilty. Feel guilty, feel guilty, feel guilty. Do not look at the fact that you're guiltless, not guilty. You've never separated from God. It's impossible. You're simply having a dream that you did that. And this is why the spiritual path is the path of what we call awakening. It's a perfectly apt term, awakening. We're waking up from this. And you're well on your way. You're watching this. You study A Course in Miracles, or if you don't, you're maybe about to, or you're considering it. There's something, and maybe it was just YouTube that suggested this video to you, but there's a reason you're watching. It's your inner teacher that's sharing this message with you. So whatever lands, it's your inner teacher speaking to you. Yes, the Holy Spirit. Listen, there's a reason you're here. We're all invited to keep watching because who knows what's going to happen next. All right, so the ego wants us to feel guilty. Here's the thing, we can't handle that. It sucks, to put it bluntly. Nobody likes to feel guilty or fearful or hateful. So, what do? We attempt to get that nastiness away from us as far away as we can. We project it on to someone else. Our own guilt becomes someone else's fault. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's this political party's fault. That's a big example worldwide, isn't it? It's this person's fault. It's the weather's fault. It's the dog's fault. It's my ex's fault, right? We try to get this guilt away from us and we project it. Here's something that we don't understand and we need to understand. It is the often quoted idea from A Course in Miracles that ideas leave not their source. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. What we project remains in our mind. It's very important. When we extend love, that too remains in our mind. This is how this mind operates. Ideas leave not their source. Thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker. So here, when we're looking at guilt, when we project it, when we attempt to place it out there, we're keeping it. We think we're getting rid of it, but we are not getting rid of it. We are keeping it in our mind. Ideas leave not their source. We only think that we're getting away from it, yet we continue to experience it, and we don't know why. Why? Because we thought we could put it off on someone else, yet we're experiencing the nasty, dirty, horrible effects of that. And we don't know why. That's why. To give something away is to keep it. World doesn't teach us that. They think when we give something away or project it, we're out that thing. When we extend it, when we give something, we no longer have it. Actually, you do. Ideas leave not their source. What you give, you keep in your mind. Incidentally, if you've watched some of these videos before, you'll know that I also use this idea, ideas leave not their source, to reassure you that you're not an ego, that you're perfectly at home in God, where you've always been, as the thought of God by which you're known in this course. Like extends like. Ideas leave not their source, capital S. Hmm? You're not an ego. You are wholly and completely guiltless. No, quite naturally, the ego does not want you to believe that and will do anything to keep you from recognizing this. Because when you do, you're in a very good position to set it aside, which is what we're all invited to do. In fact, that is the objective, if you want to call it that, of all forms of spirituality, whatever the outward appearance may take, setting the ego aside. When you entertain the idea and begin to really entertain and put into practice the idea that you are guiltless, that because ideas leave not their source, thoughts remain in the mind of the thinker, you formulate the desire to extend love to your brother. What comes back to you? What do you recognize you are? Because your brother is you, remember? There's no separation of any kind. When we extend love, we keep love in our mind. And on the other hand, also, what we project, we keep in our mind. We think we've gotten rid of it, but we can't get rid of it. So we continue to experience its effects. If you're feeling that, that's why. What do you then do? Extend love instead. Listen to the guidance of your inner teacher and forgive, 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 forgive. Not in the way the world looks at forgiveness, which is a transaction, but the true forgiveness that is taught and practiced, hopefully, right, by us here as course students. This is extending love to your brother. What you extend, you keep in your mind. It's very powerful. This is how mind operates. You are guiltless. You cannot separate from your source, capital S, nor have you ever. So if you've never fully allowed yourself to contemplate the depth, I mean, the sheer profundity and depth of that, do that today. I invite you to please do that. Think about it. When you're already thinking about it, and you don't even have to have watched a single second of this video to have already thought about it. That's what brings you here. In fact, it's what brings all of us to the spiritual path in the first place is we've heard the call of our inner teacher, of the Holy Spirit, which goes out to all of us all the time. The question, are we listening? At some point, more than one point, for sure, you have listened and it has led you here. So you're being led here again for a reason. Your inner teacher will show you what that is. You are completely guiltless. You have not crucified God's son. You've not killed and murdered and maimed him. No matter what you appear to have done in this lifetime, the separation never occurred. Forgive all of these appearances. We can't separate from our source. Therefore, everything that we see, all of the warfare and the disease and chaos, all of the things that appear to befall us in what passes for our lives, all of these things are simple dreams. They're illusions. So we don't give them truth. We don't give the illusions our allegiance. This is not you. It's not me. It certainly isn't me. In fact, as I'm fond of saying, and of course it's true, What you're looking at is a pixelated image on your screen. It's an assemblage of dots. How it all works, I've absolutely no idea. But I'm very grateful that it exists because here we can reach one another all the way across the globe. The message of the Holy Spirit is reaching you right now. We're invited to listen. All right. So, in keeping with the global theme, this is a worldwide group. It's one of the beauties of having this 21st century technology to use is that we can use it to spread love. We can use it to share the Holy Spirit, which is precisely what's going on right now. However, you share the Holy Spirit, keep doing it. Not everybody has to turn on a camera and microphone and start a channel on YouTube. That's my own particular directive. Yours may look very different. What are you called to do? Well, that is a conversation for you to have with your inner teacher, with the Holy Spirit, because there are people out there that only you can reach. One of the reasons why it's so important, and that I always make sure to thank you profoundly thank you for your dedication and commitment to your spiritual practice, is that there are people that will hear the message of the Holy Spirit best through you, not through me, not through someone else or some other teacher. And there are many in the world, aren't there? Through you. You're best situated and positioned here to reach them with the love and the miracle of true forgiveness. So we, in fact, owe it to these people to show up and extend love. We're invited to want only the peace of God. When we do, that's what we have. And we're invited to share the peace of God. Our sharing the peace of God shows us that's what we are. Hmm. Let's end with that. I thank you, as always, for tuning in, and I invite all of your comments and questions. If you'd like to pop in and say hello, then please do that. Or if you have particular questions, something that may be coming up for you on the path, these are great topics for conversation. And we've had a number of really excellent dialogues here on the comment thread here in YouTube, so I invite you to do that. Subscribe as well if you have not yet. So please go ahead and do that. I'd love to have you subscribe and join us. The prompt is here in the corner. That's the arrow. Click that, hover over that. You'll be invited to join us. And we have several of these conversations each week as we go through the course. All right. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I will talk to all of you very soon.